Hello and welcome to the Musical Instrument Investigator. Sheldon here, and I'm back with another musical instrument auction adventure. So this time we are on the website of Chicago Violin Auction, based in the US, unsurprisingly in Chicago, and they have quite a large auction of violins and kind of related items, bows, etc. coming up on the 26th of October. So it's the 22nd today, so a few days left to go. They've got 215 lots, so a lot of interesting things for us to look at. Looks like the buyer's premium is 20%, so whatever the final hammer price is, you need to add that on. If you're new to the channel, basically we have a look at musical instrument auctions, see if there's anything interesting. A lot of the stuff is very kind of heavily kind of violin or bowed stringed orientated, but when I get a chance I do have a look at kind of other instruments as well. Just to reiterate, this is a US based auction, so if you are trying to buy something and get it shipped outside of the US, then bear in mind certain restrictions on CITES materials, then obviously shipping and all of that kind of import duty stuff. I'm sure you can find all the terms on the website. So before we get started by having a look at this kind of interesting catalogue, just to say, if you do enjoy these videos, please consider subscribing, comment, turn on notifications, etc. And also definitely check out this catalogue here. Link will be in the description, because it's always interesting what's going on in the US, and there aren't that many auction houses, especially specialist musical instrument auction houses, so definitely worth checking out this auction. Right, let's just start. We're not going to look at everything, because if we did that it would go on forever and people will get annoyed, so we're just going to briefly go over stuff and see what's around. Firstly, actually, I've noticed that this layout is completely different to what it was before. We've seen a few auctions from Chicago Violin Auction, and this new layout is very professional, so it's really looking good now. So kudos to the team at Chicago Violin Auction for sorting this out. So the first item we have here is a painted violin by Alberghini Art. Retail value $600, current bid is $15. So if you like art and you like violins, then this is an interesting item for you. Yeah, actually really cool artwork, I have to say. I actually really like this. So hopefully this does well. I think, because I've had a brief look at this catalogue before, I think this is for kind of a charity auction. So it's for a foundation, I believe. So donated on behalf of the Becker Foundation, and they are supporting musicians through sponsorship, educational programs, etc. So basically, you know, if you buy this instrument, you are supporting musicians. So that is pretty interesting. You can see that there's two bids, $15. So yeah, really layout so far, really cool, and the quality of the photos is good. So anyway, without further ado, because I said we don't want to kind of do a 2-hour video, let's see what's next. A 5-string violin viola, early 20th century. Estimate is $600 to $900. So there's no bids on that so far. Branded internally Van Dorsten, 361 length of back. So that is a very curious looking instrument. I know that some fiddle players are quite keen on 5-string instruments, so I'm wondering if this is a kind of a US instrument. I mean, interesting looking. I think probably the market for an item like this is somewhat limited, but I'm sure it will find a nice home. But I like it aesthetically. These really kind of elongated F-holes, I think they're, yeah, quite curious. Right, moving on. Some fractional violins. It's a lot of a few different things. Just to save time, I'm not going to kind of go into that at the moment. It's some nice kind of wood on that. Once again, good kind of photos, and I think you can zoom in a bit as well. Yeah, so some nice looking instruments there, but because of time we're going to move on. Some more fractionals there, we're just going to go past those. Like I said, if you're interested in fractional violins, I'm sure that there are some interesting ones there. Just from a time point of view, we're going to go past that. Violin mid-20th century, so I think some of this standard trade stuff also just going to go past, just from a time point of view. But I think nice to kind of see the whole layout here. Violin circa 1907, Joseph Metzner. Just see, looks in pretty good condition there. One bid, $200. Okay, let's carry on. 355 for the length of the back. Another kind of trade violin there, but labelled Harwood, made especially for J.W. Jenkins Sons Music Co. That's got a nice back on that. There's a bid on that one as well. Button repair there, so worth looking at. Actually, we didn't look at one of the condition reports. Let's have a look at that. Well, we did maybe just very briefly, so we can see closed cracks. So yeah, pretty good. Nice professional condition reports there. So that is good. Let's carry on. Violin circa 1954, Willis M. Galt, maker and repairer. Let's have a look at this. Quite nice back on that. I'm assuming that this is an American violin, although it doesn't say where it was made. It looks in pretty good condition there, so yeah, bid on that already. That I quite like. So 351 length of back, that's a good kind of, you know, respectable smaller size there, so that's quite a nice looking instrument there. I do like American violins. Violin circa 1904, labelled A.J. Mosgers. I probably completely killed that name now, I'm sorry, I'm very bad at pronouncing names. 360 length the back there, made in the USA. Okay, interesting. Cool. Okay, interesting. I mean, I have a lot of time actually for American violins. I've owned a few, although I don't keep. I don't have any at the moment, or do I? I think actually maybe I do have one American violin at the moment. Yeah, I'm interested in very early American violins, actually, kind of early 19th or even like late 18th century, although that's extremely kind of rare. But definitely interested in American violins. Violin, yeah, 19th century, it's your standard kind of Hopf, kind of trade violin, as in kind of not Hopf family, but kind of using the brand. So you see a lot of those floating around. Violin like late 19th century with Steiner on the back. Once again, it's a fairly standard trade violin. This ton Klar kind of stuff was kind of kicking about a lot in Germany. So once again, this is a kind of trade kind of thing here. Seeing a few more instruments here. I mean, completely normal to see a lot of these kind of instruments around, because that is what the majority of people would be able to afford or would have access to. So we're just seeing, you know, a range of different trade violins here. And a few more here. This is E. Martin. That's kind of think holds slightly more value maybe than some of the others. A bit of repair needed there. It's kind of Magini turns on the scroll there. So far we're seeing a fair amount of trade stuff. Violin, late 19th century, Joseph et Antonius even. Okay. Have a quick look at this. Probably a fairly standard instrument that's been jazzed up a little bit to look like something else, but it can be difficult to tell when you're not viewing things in person. Definitely easy to look over stuff. That's what makes the experts so powerful. They can kind of tell, even from photos, from without viewing things, if something is worth kind of looking at or not. So we've got another trade instrument there. We'll just try and skip a few, otherwise we'll be here a while. Violin circa 1890, Excelsior. It's kind of another one of the trade violins. Just keep going for a little bit. I know that there's some other more interesting items appearing in the cello, obviously bows as well, so that would be good to see. Got a bit more of a kind of another Maggini inspired kind of trade violin there. The violin late 19th century. Okay, violin early 20th century. Label Alfredus Contino, Roma. Something interesting on the button there. 4 to 600 on that. Let's have a quick zoom in on that. Interesting plate on the back there. Let's see what they're saying on the condition report of that. Yeah, strange. So that's interesting anyway. I don't think that you should take any note of the label on that, but other than that, E.L. Goss, connoisseur, appraiser, repairer and dealer in violins. Okay, interesting. Violin early 20th century. A fairly curious looking thing. Okay. Violin 1995, Franz Sadner, so it's modern German trade, but some of them can be pretty nice. Another 19th century violin here. Apologies if you're hearing a lot of noise. I'm kind of positioned by a window at the moment, so you might hear some traffic outside. Another kind of trade violin here. Another trade violin with a Viome label. Quite nice wood for the back there. Let's carry on. Violin early 20th century, made by G. Glode. Once again, I really do apologise for completely killing everyone's name here. Not my intention. Yeah, fairly curious again. Let's carry on. So we're not even a quarter of the way through yet. Violin mid 19th century. This looks like another Hopf type one, although this one a little bit nicer than the other one that we saw, I think. Violin 19th century. Once again, I think this is our standard trade stuff. Once again, let's have a quick look at this. Violin unlabelled, quite nice back, but it looks like the varnish has potentially been messed around with a bit, but that would be perhaps something I'd quite like to look at in person if I was in the Chicago area. Violin late 19th century, 358 length of the back. Let's have a quick look at this. I think that's a fairly standard trade instrument, but as I said, it can be bit misleading. Violin 1921, Joseph John Marks, maker in 1921. Okay. Violin late 19th century, Francois Barzoni, kind of French trade instrument there. A lady's violin, early 20th century. That's an interesting term for a 7/8 violin. But I think that's a bit of an antiquated kind of term. I think it's probably better to say 7/8 really, because it's 349 millimeter of the length of the back. Fractional size, we'll skip that for now. More kind of trade stuff here. More fractional. So we are just going to skip through these at the moment. Violin circa 2001, Ivan Donov, Luthier, Sofia, Bulgaria. So no bids on that so far. This is a maker that I've heard of before, but I would not be able to tell you if this is correct or not. I like the way they've got like a 19 kind of 20th century label printed, and they've kind of gone over into the 21st. That's kind of interesting. So that could be correct, but I don't know the maker enough. Violin mid-20th century. It's fairly standard trade stuff. We'll just carry on. Breton and Brevet. French stuff. Violin, late 19th century. That is a curious looking thing. Joseph Bowman, the world's greatest musical instrument manufacturer. Chicago. Okay, interesting. It's a bold statement. Well, it's an interesting looking instrument, isn't it? 358. It's very wide. The length is fairly normal, or maybe a little bit larger at 358, but it's quite wide. It almost looks like viola proportions there. Another Schmidt, standard kind of trade stuff here. Once again, we're just going to go past these, but take your own time, have a look through and see if there's anything interesting for you. This see a lot of these instruments with the Salazar kind of stamp, like Dominique Salazar, of varying levels of quality. That could be some kind of French trade violin, quite possible. 354, final late 19th century, kind of sweeping F holes on that. The Cochat violin, so more kind of tradey stuff there. Slowly getting there. 1913, Antonio Curatoli, copy of Amati, 52800. I mean, it looks like a fairly standard kind of possibly Eastern European instrument, but looks nice enough, in decent condition. Early 20th century. Violin 1992, Karl Hofner. There you go. I mean, another good German trade brand, so fairly reliable. Violin early 20th century. Okay. A few of these things we're just going to go through. Like I said, we can't look at everything, unfortunately. Violin 1982, Roth by Sherlin Roth. So there we go. More trade stuff here. Stuff from Berlin. 1898. Labelled Marengo Romanus Rinaldi. Torini. Let's have a quick look at this. Why not? It looks fairly standard kind of trade stuff to me. But once again, always worth checking things in person. Franz Sadner, so trade there. Look, quite a few of these Antonio Laveri kind of trade violins, Wolf Brothers here as well. So we've got a good range of German instruments that are good for students. Violin circa 1924, bid on this one. Labelled Enrico Robella. Yeah, it looks like quite a kind of, at least an instrument in good condition. Can't really comment on any of this other stuff, but 361 length of back, slightly on the larger size, but not too bad. Minor there, some more trade stuff. Bruno and Sons. It's actually not too bad looking violin there. Okay, that's not too bad. Length back 360. Violin circa 2000, pace old, so once again, trade violin there. Mancy et Paris. So we're seeing quite a lot of trade stuff here. Bruckner, we're almost seeing violins. Oh, here's a Roth. Violins from every single German workshop and manufacturing facility that existed over the last kind of 100 plus years, but that's kind of interesting. Prokofiev here, so we're seeing some other work here for other kind of factory instruments potentially, slightly over the border from Germany. Violin 1926, labelled Zotterville Mistrie Husla, Roku 1926. So possibly some kind of Hungarian instrument here. Kind of, yeah, looks like it could be. Kind of hard to say. Alois Bittner, 800 to 1200 is the estimate on that. Violin 1912, Claude Lorraine Heskett, violin maker, Omaha. That's actually fairly interesting. 357 length about. I like that scroll. It's a nice kind of characterful scroll. Omaha there, Nebraska. That's good. Bit of a crack there on the bass bar, so worth looking out. Another Roth here that are very popular in the US. Violin mid-19th century, labelled Francesco Ruggieri, 354 length the back. Let's have a look at this. Some kind of odd contemporary label there, but yeah, I don't know, not too bad looking instrument actually. That is definitely one that I'd quite like to check in person. It probably is a fairly standard kind of violin, but still worth looking at. Hand built, W.K. Fuchs, Geigenbaumeister, Elfersdorf, made in Germany. Kind of Guarneri-esque trade instrument there. That'd be popular for some. Haven't seen any bows yet. Surely you must see some bows soon. Another Roth, another 19th century violin. Some more German stuff here. Violin late 19th century. Looks like a kind of standard late 19th century kind of stuff. Violin circa 1929, Willibald Stenger, Chicago. It looks interesting enough. Okay, violin 1990, Sofia Vecchio, Mincho Menchev. Okay, 1000 to 1500 on that. Sophia as well, so another one there, Mincho Menchev. Okay, interesting. 356 length of back. Violin 1930, Sacchetti, Gianetto and Filo or something. Interesting. 358 length of back. Looks like it's probably a standard instrument that's had a extra label added, but you do never know. American Star violin. Okay. Sidle there. Robert Glier, Cincinnati. That looks kind of not too bad either. Violin, late 19th century, okay. Caterina Guarneri, interesting. 356, the length about 1500 to 2000 on that. It's kind of fairly interesting from the front, needs a lot of repair. Quite nice woods there on the back, it's kind of interesting. Nice scroll actually, so yeah, unfortunate the condition, but quite an interesting looking violin otherwise. Violin 1872, Bausch, some more German stuff here. Violin circa 1810, Johann Stefan Thumhard. 364 length back, so it's pretty big. This could actually be potentially correct to the label. Hard to say, but at least it definitely has some age, the instrument, but it is quite large. Violin, late 18th century, 2 to 3,000 there. So 1,400 they want for the opening bid. So kind of illegible label here, but looks like from Newkirk. The maker needs a bit of repair there on the peg box. It needs probably at least 1,000 or so kind of dollars of or even more of work to get that up and running. Violin, late 18th century, 3 to 5, 2,000 on that, 357. That's quite a nice looking violin actually. Later scroll on that. Yeah, nice instrument. Violin, early 20th century, 5 to 8. Can't read 3, branded BR Italy. Curious looking thing. Have to assume that estimate that is from a known maker of some kind, but I honestly do not recognise that at all. It's a bit of an interesting shape. Viola, 1965, Frechner. Viola, mid-20th century. We've got the Tom Clara again. 20th century. Antonio Calacha is the label. It does look fairly standard, just a bit messed about with. Viola, circa 2005, Matthias Thoma, another kind of trade instrument there, another viola. Viola, mid-20th century, another viola. Some more standard kind of trade stuff here. Once again, viola, early 19th century. Let's have a look at this. Okay. I do feel that for the violists, it's kind of not that many instruments around for them, unfortunately. Meisel, Rapaldi, William Lewis and Son. Just seeing a lot of fairly standard stuff, but good to see so many violas. But it is difficult sometimes to get to find some interesting ones. Viola, 2003. Escrito sotto el diretto controllo del maestro Matteo Gliga Vasile. Interesting. 408's good modern size. I mean, looks like a well-made instrument there. 408 length of back as well, which is quite handy. Another German viola there. Another one from the Gliga kind of workshop. Another Thoma here. Viola, mid-20th century. Well, it really is quite a lot of violas actually. 2002, another Gliga. So more Thoma. So a good opportunity there to get some lower level violas there. Rudolf Fiedler. Suspect another kind of trade type of viola there. Simon Joseph. So I think this is just more kind of trade stuff here. Viola, 1999, Paysold, German violas. Karl Hofner. Okay, 2005, Simon Nandor, made by hand in Romania. Some of these instruments can be pretty interesting because, I mean, it's hard to follow sometimes where some of these instruments are made by kind of individuals but working in a workshop, or if they're just kind of straight up kind of factory instruments. That I presume is just another line, but I mean, looks kind of interesting enough. 404 length of back, which is quite good. If you can get it for fairly cheap, why not? Might be a good student instrument. Sadhana there, another Sadhana, Roman teller, so more kind of trade stuff, Hornsteiner, another Hornsteiner there, another Sadhana. Wow, really is a crazy amount of violas. So another viola here, Simon Joseph, another Simon Joseph. Viola 1999, Joseph Hoffman, Chicago, made in the workshop of Christopher Pugh. Let's have a look at that. Nice enough kind of looking viola, like fairly simple, I would say, but you know, could be an opportunity to get a good viola. 394, it's kind of a little bit on the smaller side for a modern viola for kind of professionals, but you know, people with a little bit of a smaller kind of reach, that might be useful. Another Hornsteiner here. I really didn't realise how many violas are in this cell. It's really quite crazy. Ficker there. Conrad Gotts, yeah, it really is kind of a who's who of kind of German trade instruments, really. Sadhana there again. Hank Venner. Okay. Right, we're on to cellos now, that's good. Eric Grunert, Penzberg, let's have a look at that. But yeah, wonderful, great pictures, great layout of the auction. Definitely can't say anything about that. Interesting, a brass cello. Okay, so not many cellos there. Silver frog and button there. So that's interesting. No bids on that. Looks like someone has scribbled something on that. Is that meant to say Pacat, I think, which would be kind of interesting. Okay, violin bow here. We're not going to get too much into bows, but if in case you see any curious ones, silver mounted there. Nickel mounted. If we see anything obviously interesting, we'll have a look. Interesting adjuster on this bow. Interesting wood as well. Yeah, that's probably, would quite like to look at that bow maybe a bit more closely. Okay. Silver mounted violin bow again. Let's have a look. Branded Bausch. A few of these are kind of fairly standard. So we had a viola bow there, cello bow, another violin bow here. So bows are not really, I'm kind of not super interested in them at the moment, but if I do see anything interesting, I will have a bit of a closer look at it. So far, I'm not seeing anything that's catching my eye, really. A Frechner bow, potentially, so that could be interesting, really beautiful. I really like this type of adjuster that you get on like a lot of German bows. Some of the Dodd bows have this wide ebony in the kind of silver, but that looks like quite potentially interesting bow there. It looks like maybe a head break, so that's unfortunate. So what's the estimate on that? 5 to 800. Yeah, already 2 bids on that. I mean, this kind of a bow, if the repair's done well, this could be a good bow. I mean, some of this Frechner bows are really very good, so if you can get that for a good price, why not? Half size bow there. Vorin à Paris, marked on that bow. Fairly standard stuff so far. Silver mounted cello bow, E. Herman. Got a bid on that one. Okay. We're slowly getting towards the end of this auction now. Silver mounted violin bow, branded Charles Bazin, France. Okay. So there's a few kind of interesting bows floating about. Okay. Oh, they seem to be blocked. Is that the end of the auction? I thought that was 225 lots or so. Have I missed something? Let's go back to the auction and just make sure that I've not done something stupid. Okay, let's see. Make sure we're here. Where are we at? On 200. Okay, fair enough. Well, that must be the end then. That's interesting that it says 215 lots, but we can't seem to see the other ones, but I can only assume that that is the end of the auction. But anyway, a curious auction, definitely worth kind of having a look at. Oh, it does say 200 fine violins, violas, cellos and bows, so not sure why it says 215 lots there, but anyway, yeah, interesting auction. A few things there for everyone, a lot of it kind of mainly good level kind of German trade stuff in very good condition, a few other kind of interesting things from the 18th century floating about, a few bows that could be curious, so yeah, definitely worth looking at for sure, and some kind of curious things at the beginning. So yeah, a good solid auction, and I have to say layout kind of very good. Really enjoyed looking at this catalogue, so check out the link in the description. Thanks a lot for watching everyone, really appreciate it, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.